She saw Mike slam into the group of men who still stood in front of the restaurant. He bounced off the rounded belly of a portly gentleman who was struggling with the long ends of his heavy muffler, trying unsuccessfully to fasten his greatcoat. For an instant the two of them were locked together, twirling and staggering until the man towered back off balance, his black mustache quivering with indignation. He shouted and waved a fist at Mike, who gave him one last glance before racing around the corner. Less than a block away, Mike dove into another alley. When Frances arrived at the alley, out of breath and gulping for air, he was gone. She was frantic that she had lost him until she heard a scraping noise and a chuckle coming from a pile of discarded packing boxes. As quietly as she could, she climbed high enough to look down at Mike, who was sitting in a nest of rags and a bright piece of woolen scarf. He had opened his fist, and inside it lay a wad of bills and a gold money clip. "Oh, Mike!" Frances cried out, sick at her discovery. "How could you?" Mike tried to jump up but fell back, legs flailing desperately as he fought to regain his balance. "What are you doing here?" he yelled at Frances. "You got no business scaring me like that." "You stole that man's money," Frances gasped. Mike scrambled up out of his nest so quickly he knocked Frances off balance. The two of them staggered, grabbing each other to stay themselves before Mike snapped, "I've stolen before, lots of times." Frances cried out, "But stealing's wrong." "Is it now?" Mike glared at his sister defensively. Frances had never heard this bitter tone in his voice before. "You know it is. Can't you remember Dad telling you so?" Mike snapped back. "Did Dad ever say that stealing was wrong when it meant not going hungry?" Frances pressed a hand against her stomach. She knew well what it was to be hungry. She knew about people like those gentlemen who had more than enough food that they could ever eat, while others went to bed at night with their empty bellies aching. But she also knew what was right. Dad taught her. Those smiling eyes and that firm voice hadn't lied. "Stealing for any reason's wrong, Mike," Frances said. Mike raised his chin higher. "You've eaten the meat I've been able to bring home now and then. Ma's wearing shoes I bought for her with the money I've stolen." "She doesn't know." Frances' voice was a whisper. For an instant there was pain in Mike's eyes, and his voice softened. "I don't like to steal, Frances," he admitted. "I haven't got a choice. You see that, don't you?" The words burned her throat, but Frances said, "I can't, Mike. It's wrong. It's untrue to Da. Da didn't know how hard it would be for Ma and the rest of us to earn enough to live on after he left us." "Mike," she cried, "it wasn't his fault. He left us to make our way alone without him. It is none of your business what I do. You're not in charge of me." "Well, I'm not going to let you steal," she insisted, fighting anger and hurt and a wild desire to shake her brother till his teeth rattled. "It doesn't matter," Mike said. His bravado deserted him. He slumped against the pile of boxes. "Something I've got to do." Frances ached for him. Tentatively, she reached out and then pulled back her hand. If she was caught trying to help Mike, if she wanted to help Mike, she'd have to remain firm. "You're going to get caught," she told him. "No, I won't," Mike insisted. "The lads say I'm too clever." "What lads?" "Bertie, Ted, Jack, you know 'em. We stick together." A shadow suddenly fell over them and Frances was shoved aside. She cried out in terror as a policeman's hand gripped Mike's shoulder tightly. "This the one?" he asked the man behind him. It was the gentleman whom Mike had robbed. The man was so angry his mustache trembled. "Yes, that's the little thief," he shouted. Frances took one look at Mike's panic-stricken face and stumbled forward, teeth chattering as she tried to speak. "Please listen to me, sir." She tugged at the man's sleeve, but he ignored her. The policeman scowled at Frances and asked the gentleman, "What about this girl? She in on it too?" As Frances gasped, Mike yelled, "No!" His face was pinched and frightened as he looked at like a shriveled old man. "She had nothing to do with this. She chased me. She tried to get me to give back the money." "Come with me, lad," the policeman said sternly. "You're under arrest." Frances ran after them to the street, her thoughts a terrified jumble. What would happen to Mike? She'd heard that copper stealers were sent to the crowded, filthy Tombs prison. And Ma! Frances groaned aloud as she wondered how her mother would react. "Frances!" Mike called. But there was nothing Frances could do to help him now.